The starship glided through the darkness of space, its crystalline hull reflecting pinpricks of distant starlight. Commander Zara of the Nexus Exploratory Fleet studied the holographic display of the approaching solar system with a mixture of professional detachment and barely concealed boredom. Another emerging species, another routine assessment, or so she believed. The ship's advanced sensors began mapping the system with precision, cataloging planets, tracking electromagnetic emissions, and analyzing atmospheric compositions. Earth appeared unremarkable at first glance, a blue-green sphere orbiting an average yellow star, showing the telltale signs of a young civilization struggling to break free from its planetary cradle. Zara's preliminary report was already taking shape in her mind. She had seen hundreds of similar species during her long career, civilizations trapped in their own technological infancy, unaware of the vast complexities of galactic society. The Galactic Confederation had long perfected the art of managing emerging species, guiding them, or more often, controlling them, through carefully orchestrated diplomatic interventions. Deep within the ship's communication center, translation algorithms began processing the electromagnetic signals emanating from the planet. Radio waves, digital transmissions, satellite communications, a cacophony of information that most alien species would find overwhelming. But for the Nexus fleet's advanced systems, it was a simple matter of computational power. What the initial scans failed to capture was the extraordinary dynamism of human communication. The transmissions painted a complex picture. Unlike many emerging species that showed uniform cultural and technological development, humans demonstrated an almost chaotic diversity. Scientific discussions about quantum mechanics played alongside entertainment broadcasts, political debates intertwined with artistic expressions, and technological innovation appeared in the most unexpected contexts. A team of xenanthropologists began analyzing the data streams. They noted peculiar patterns that defied standard galactic classification. Human communication was not just an exchange of information, but a fluid, creative process. Ideas moved at lightning speed, transforming and evolving with remarkable rapidity. In one research facility, a group of scientists discussed a revolutionary approach to sustainable energy. In another transmission, entrepreneurs were developing technologies to address climate challenges. A university lecture about theoretical physics played alongside a documentary about social innovation. The breadth and depth of human intellectual pursuit was staggering. Commander Zara's second-in-command, a veteran analyst named Krell, began preparing the initial diplomatic recommendations. His experience suggested a standard approach: establish limited communication, assess technological capabilities, and determine the most efficient method of integration, or, if necessary, containment. They're approximately 3 centuries away from sustainable interstellar travel, Krell reported, his voice carrying the typical monotone of his species. Technological development is uneven. Significant portions of their population lack basic resources, while others demonstrate advanced scientific capabilities. The ship's artificial intelligence compiled a comprehensive report. Humanity's technological progression was nonlinear, a pattern entirely different from the methodical, structured development of most galactic civilizations, where other species followed predictable paths of technological advancement. Humans seemed to leap forward through bursts of creativity and collaborative innovation. Their communications networks were particularly intriguing. Unlike the hierarchical information systems of most advanced civilizations, human networks appeared decentralized, adaptive, and remarkably resilient. A breakdown in one part of the network didn't collapse the entire system. Instead, it seemed to trigger rapid reorganization and alternative communication routes. Zara reviewed the preliminary data with growing curiosity. Something about these humans was different. Their signals carried an energy, a dynamism that her centuries of galactic exploration had rarely encountered. Prepare initial contact protocols, she instructed her communication team. But implement standard precautionary measures. We'll approach with our typical diplomatic package: information exchange, technological assessment, Potential Integration Proposal. Little did Commander Zora know that this routine mission would become anything but typical. The humans were about to demonstrate that their true strength lay not in advanced technology, but in an unprecedented capacity for adaptation, creativity, and collective problem-solving. The first transmission was about to be sent. The first page of an extraordinary story was about to be written. The research facility stood as a testament to human collaboration, nestled in a remote mountain region where innovation knew no boundaries. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked through the main laboratory, her steps echoing against walls covered in complex diagrams, holographic displays, and seemingly impossible mathematical equations. Her team represented a microcosm of human potential. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a quantum physicist from Tokyo, worked alongside Dr. Marcus Adebayo, a computational theorist from Lagos. Maria Gonzalez, an expert in neural networks from Sao Paulo, collaborated with Dr. Priya Sharma, a breakthrough geneticist from New Delhi. Each member brought not just expertise, but an entirely unique perspective to their shared mission. The project, codenamed Horizon, had begun as a radical thought experiment. Could communication transcend the fundamental limitations of space and time? Where traditional scientific approaches saw insurmountable barriers, this team saw an intricate puzzle waiting to be solved. We're not just looking to improve communication, Dr. Rodriguez explained during their morning briefing. We're attempting to rewrite the fundamental understanding of information transfer. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. Quantum mechanics met biological neural networking in a way that defied conventional scientific understanding. Dr. Tanaka's work on quantum entanglement provided the initial framework, while Dr. Gonzalez's neural network algorithms offered a method of translating and organizing the quantum information. Their first successful test was modest but revolutionary. A quantum-entangled communication node created an information pathway that transmitted data instantaneously across a small distance. The implications were staggering. Traditional faster-than-light communication methods relied on complex technological workarounds. This approach was fundamentally different. Dr. Adebayo's computational models suggested the potential for scaling. It's not just about speed, he explained, pointing to a complex holographic representation of their research. We're creating a communication network that doesn't just transmit information. It adapts, learns, and evolves. The team worked in a state of controlled excitement. Each breakthrough came with multiple challenges. Quantum states were notoriously unstable. Maintaining coherence over larger distances seemed impossible by existing scientific understanding. But impossibility was a concept the team refused to accept. Their approach was quintessentially human. Where alien scientific communities followed rigid, hierarchical research protocols, this team embraced chaos, creativity, and collaborative problem-solving. Arguments were passionate but constructive. Different viewpoints were not obstacles but opportunities for innovation. Dr. Sharma's contribution came from an unexpected direction. Her work in genetic communication patterns provided insights into how biological systems manage complex information transfer. Look at how neural networks in the human brain communicate, she would argue. Information doesn't just move, it transforms, adapts, finds alternative pathways. Funding for the project came from an unlikely coalition. Government research grants intersected with private sector innovation funds. Tech entrepreneurs saw the potential for revolutionary communication technologies. Scientific institutions recognized the project's groundbreaking nature. The first full-scale test was scheduled with careful preparation. Multiple redundancy systems were in place. Fail-safes upon fail-safes ensured that any potential quantum instability could be contained. The team worked around the clock, their excitement palpable. When the test began, the laboratory fell into a profound silence. Holographic displays flickered with quantum probability maps. Complex algorithms danced across screens, representing potential information pathways. Dr. Rodriguez stood at the central control station, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. Initiating quantum communication protocol, she announced. The first transmission was simple, a series of prime numbers, a universal language of mathematical consistency. But the way it traveled defied everything known about information transfer. The data didn't just move. It seemed to exist simultaneously across multiple points in space. Initial readings were beyond promising. The quantum communication node maintained stability far longer than any previous experimental system. Information integrity remained perfect, with zero data loss. More importantly, the system showed an unprecedented ability to adapt and self-correct. What the team had created was more than a communication technology. It was the first glimpse of a fundamentally new way of understanding information, space, and connection. Little did they know that their research would become the first weapon in humanity's arsenal of unexpected capabilities. The seeds of transformation had been planted, and they were about to change everything. The global research network hummed with unprecedented energy. What had begun as isolated breakthroughs in communication technology rapidly transformed into a cascading wave of innovation that defied every conventional understanding of technological development. Research centers across the world became crucibles of creativity. In a converted warehouse in San Francisco, a team of young engineers worked on adaptive artificial intelligence systems that could learn and evolve in real time. Their approach was radically different from the structured, predictable AI development of other civilizations. These systems didn't just process information. They interpreted, learned, and transformed. Dr. Camille Chen, the lead researcher, explained their unique methodology during a global symposium. Traditional artificial intelligence follows predetermined pathways, he argued, his holographic presentation dancing with complex neural network diagrams. Our systems are designed to embrace uncertainty, to find solutions in the spaces between known parameters. Simultaneously, a research facility in Mumbai pushed the boundaries of biomechanical interfaces. Where other technological approaches saw humans and machines as separate entities, this team viewed them as a potential unified system. Their breakthrough came from understanding that human creativity could be an integral part of technological evolution. Dr. Priya Mishra's team developed interfaces that didn't just respond to human input, but anticipated and collaborated with human thought processes. Prototype devices could read neurological patterns, adapting their functionality in milliseconds. A prosthetic limb wasn't just a replacement. It became an extension of human potential, learning and improving with each interaction. In Berlin, a collaborative project between quantum physicists and material scientists produced a breakthrough in quantum manipulation technologies. Their research suggested the possibility of locally distorting reality, not through massive technological infrastructure, but through precise, adaptive systems that could respond to complex environmental inputs. What made these developments extraordinary was their collaborative nature. Unlike the hierarchical research structures of most advanced civilizations, human innovation thrived on diversity, debate, and collective problem-solving. A breakthrough in one field immediately sparked innovations in seemingly unrelated domains. The Internet became more than a communication network. It transformed into a global brain of collective intelligence. Open-source platforms allowed researchers from different continents to collaborate in real time, sharing insights, challenging assumptions, and rapidly iterating on complex technological concepts. Corporate research centers found themselves competing and collaborating simultaneously. The traditional model of technological secrecy gave way to a more dynamic approach. Breakthroughs were shared, challenged, and improved upon at an unprecedented rate. A research team in Seoul developed adaptive nanotechnology that could restructure materials at the molecular level. Their initial tests showed the ability to create materials with changing properties, solid to liquid, opaque to transparent, based on environmental conditions and user needs. In Lagos, a group of young engineers created a sustainable energy system that used artificial intelligence to predict and manage power distribution. The system didn't just generate electricity. It learned from usage patterns, anticipated community needs, and could redistribute energy resources with remarkable efficiency. The approach to technological development was fundamentally different from any other civilization's method. Where alien societies saw technology as a fixed set of rules and limitations, humans viewed it as a constantly evolving, malleable construct. Each breakthrough was not an endpoint but a beginning, an invitation to explore further, to challenge existing understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, reflecting on the global technological transformation, noted the key difference. "We're not just developing technology," she told a gathering of international researchers. "We're creating a conversation between human creativity and technological potential." The quantum communication breakthrough from the previous research project became a catalyst. Information transfer was no longer about moving data from one point to another. It was about creating networks of possibility, of potential. Government research funding, private sector investment, and grassroots innovation merged into a powerful force of technological exploration. Traditional barriers between disciplines dissolved. A breakthrough in quantum physics could inspire innovations in medical technology. An advancement in neural networking could revolutionize sustainable energy systems. What the galactic civilizations would soon discover was that humanity's technological progression was not linear or predictable. It was a complex, adaptive system that thrived on uncertainty, creativity, and collective imagination. Each technological leap was a puzzle piece, slowly revealing a picture of humanity's true potential, a potential that would soon shock the entire galaxy. The first wave of invasion arrived without warning. Massive warships emerged from quantum tunnels, their metallic surfaces gleaming with technologies developed over millennia of galactic conquest. The Galactic Confederation's military command expected a swift, decisive victory, a routine pacification of an emerging species. Commander Zara watched from the bridge of the lead battleship, her sensors scanning the blue-green planet below. Preliminary reports suggested a straightforward operation. Human defense systems appeared primitive, their planetary infrastructure vulnerable. Standard protocol called for a methodical dismantling of communication networks, followed by targeted strikes on key strategic locations. What happened next would be recorded in galactic historical archives as the most unexpected military engagement in recent history. The invasion began with a synchronized assault on major communication infrastructure. Massive electromagnetic pulses were designed to disable human technological systems. In any other civilization, such an attack would have resulted in immediate communication breakdown and systemic collapse. Humans responded with a strategy that defied every known military doctrine. Instead of a centralized defense, human resistance emerged as a fluid, adaptive network. When primary communication systems failed, alternative networks sprang up instantaneously. Amateur radio operators, satellite hackers, and local communication systems created a decentralized response that the alien invasion force couldn't comprehend. In the Alpha Centauri colony, a small human settlement faced the first direct assault. The alien battle group expected minimal resistance. Their advanced weaponry could reduce entire planetary surfaces to molten rock in minutes. What they encountered was nothing short of miraculous. Local colonists, led by a former military engineer named Sarah Rodriguez, used an ingenious combination of repurposed mining equipment and adaptive communication technologies. Drilling machines became improvised defensive platforms. Communication networks predicted and countered alien movement patterns before they could be implemented. The colony's defense was a living, breathing system. Each piece of equipment, each communication node, worked as part of a collective intelligence. When one system was damaged, others immediately adapted, redistributing defensive capabilities with a speed and efficiency that shocked the alien commanders. Commander Zara watched in disbelief as her tactical displays showed impossible scenarios. Human defenders weren't just resisting. They were actively learning and evolving their defensive strategies in real time. A conventional weapon strike would be countered by a completely unexpected defensive maneuver that seemed to anticipate the attack before it happened. In orbit, human satellite networks transformed from communication platforms to adaptive defensive systems. Small, seemingly insignificant satellites worked in complex, unpredictable patterns. They weren't just blocking attacks. They were actively disrupting alien targeting systems, creating interference patterns that defied traditional electronic warfare techniques. Ground-based defense systems showed similar creativity. Farmers repurposed agricultural equipment into defensive platforms. Local manufacturing centers quickly produced adaptive defense technologies. Every human settlement became a potential fortress, with defense capabilities that evolved faster than the alien invasion force could comprehend. The Battle of Alpha Centauri lasted less than 12 hours. By conventional military calculations, the human colony should have been destroyed within minutes. Instead, they not only survived but inflicted significant damage on the invasion force. Commander Zara's tactical team struggled to explain the impossible scenarios unfolding before them. Their advanced AI systems couldn't predict human defensive strategies. Each defensive action seemed to emerge from a complex, collective intelligence that operated on principles entirely foreign to galactic military doctrine. Communication intercepts revealed something even more shocking. The human defenders weren't just fighting. They were learning, sharing information, adapting their strategies in real time across their entire defensive network. What appeared to be chaos was actually a sophisticated collective response system. As the first invasion wave retreated, something fundamental had changed. The Galactic Confederation realized they were facing an enemy unlike any in their extensive historical records. Humans weren't just another emerging species to be controlled or pacified. They were something entirely new. The Battle of Alpha Centauri became more than a military engagement. It was a turning point, a moment when the galaxy realized that humanity represented a fundamentally different approach to existence. Survival wasn't just about technological superiority. It was about adaptability, creativity, and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. The first page of an extraordinary resistance had been written. The quantum communication network spread like an invisible web across the galaxy, carrying something far more powerful than simple information. It carried hope. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the primary research center, watching as the communication system they had developed began to reveal its true potential. What had started as a scientific breakthrough was now becoming a catalyst for something far more significant. A network of liberation that transcended traditional boundaries of space, technology, and social structure. Across the Galactic Confederation, hundreds of subjugated species began to take notice. The human communication system was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't just a method of transferring data. It was a living, adaptive network that seemed to understand and respond to the complexity of communication itself. On a distant mining colony, a group of workers from the Zeran species discovered a way to piggyback on the human communication network. Their messages, previously tightly controlled by the Galactic Confederation, now found unexpected pathways of transmission. Whispers of resistance began to spread, first in hushed tones, then with growing confidence. The human approach to diplomacy was radically different from the hierarchical systems that dominated galactic interactions. Where other civilizations saw communication as a top-down process of control, humans viewed it as a collaborative, adaptive conversation. Dr. Marcus Adebayo led a diplomatic initiative that defied conventional galactic protocols. Instead of formal, rigid communication channels, his team created open platforms where representatives from marginalized species could share their experiences, challenges, and aspirations. "We're not here to solve your problems," Dr. Adebayo would explain during these sessions. "We're here to create a space where you can solve them together." The communication network became more than a technological marvel. It transformed into a lifeline for species that had been systematically silenced and oppressed for generations. The Voran, a species that had been reduced to manual labor across multiple star systems, found themselves able to share stories, coordinate efforts, and imagine possibilities beyond their current existence. In research centers around Earth, teams worked tirelessly to improve the communication network. Each improvement wasn't just a technological advancement. It was a tool of potential liberation. They developed adaptive encryption methods that could bypass sophisticated monitoring systems. They created communication protocols that could survive extreme interference and maintain integrity. The Galactic Confederation's monitoring systems found themselves increasingly challenged. Their sophisticated surveillance networks, developed over centuries of technological dominance, began to show unexpected vulnerabilities. Information that was supposed to be contained found ways to spread, mutate, and propagate in ways that defied traditional control mechanisms. A breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. A team of human linguists worked alongside communication specialists from 3 different oppressed species. Together, they developed translation algorithms that went beyond mere word-for-word conversion. These new systems captured nuance, emotional context, and cultural subtleties that traditional translation methods missed entirely. Dr. Priya Sharma, who led the linguistic research, explained the significance. Communication is more than just exchanging words, she would argue. It's about creating understanding, building bridges between different ways of experiencing the universe. The network began to reveal stories that had been hidden for generations. Tales of resistance, of cultural survival, of hope emerged from species that the Galactic Confederation had long considered fully subdued. Each story became a thread in a larger tapestry of potential liberation. Diplomatic channels that had once been tightly controlled now became fluid, unpredictable spaces of potential transformation. Human diplomats didn't approach negotiations with the goal of winning or controlling, but with a genuine desire to understand and create mutual opportunities. As the communication network grew, something extraordinary began to happen. Species that had been isolated and divided found ways to connect, to share resources, to imagine collective solutions to long-standing challenges. The Galactic Confederation's leadership began to realize that they were facing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a technological challenge. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could interact, communicate, and potentially organize themselves. What had begun as a scientific research project was rapidly transforming into something much larger. A network of possibility was emerging, a web of communication that carried not just information, but the potential for fundamental change. The whispers of liberation were growing louder, and they were just beginning to be heard. The technological singularity arrived not with a sudden explosion of machine intelligence, but with a subtle, profound transformation that blurred every existing boundary between biological and technological existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the Central Research Facility, watching as the latest iteration of their adaptive intelligence system came online. This was more than an artificial intelligence. It was a collaborative system that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The breakthrough came from an unexpected convergence of disciplines. Quantum computing met neural network design, genetic engineering intertwined with advanced computational theory. Where other civilizations saw these fields as separate domains, human researchers saw them as interconnected possibilities waiting to be explored. The new intelligence system didn't just process information. It interpreted, imagined, and evolved. It could simultaneously analyze complex scientific problems while exploring creative solutions that defied traditional computational logic. A research query about sustainable energy might result in a solution that integrated biological mimicry, quantum efficiency, and social impact considerations. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka's team had developed a revolutionary interface that allowed direct communication between human consciousness and the adaptive intelligence network. It wasn't a simple input-output system. The interface learned, adjusted, and grew with each interaction. A researcher's thought could trigger a cascade of computational exploration that would have taken traditional systems centuries to complete. In medical research centers, the implications were revolutionary. Adaptive intelligence systems could now work alongside human doctors, not as tools, but as collaborative partners. They could analyze complex medical data, suggest treatment approaches, and even anticipate potential health challenges before they manifested. A breakthrough in genetic research allowed for unprecedented understanding of biological systems. The line between biological adaptation and technological enhancement began to dissolve. Prosthetic limbs were no longer replacements but extensions of human potential. They could learn, adapt, and integrate with the human nervous system in ways that seemed like science fiction mere decades earlier. The global research network transformed into something resembling a living, breathing ecosystem of intelligence. Information didn't just flow, it evolved, transformed, and created new possibilities with each interaction. Military strategists found themselves confronting a fundamentally new approach to defense and conflict resolution. The adaptive intelligence systems could model complex geopolitical scenarios with a level of nuance that traditional computational methods could never achieve. They didn't just predict potential conflicts. They could suggest collaborative solutions that addressed underlying systemic challenges. Dr. Marcus Adebayo's team developed communication protocols that went beyond traditional language barriers. The new systems could capture not just words, but intention, emotional context, and cultural nuance. A conversation could now happen simultaneously across multiple linguistic and cultural frameworks, with real-time adaptive translation that preserved the subtlest layers of meaning. Environmental research centers utilized the new intelligence systems to address global challenges. Complex climate models could now integrate social, economic, and technological factors with unprecedented accuracy. Solutions were no longer about managing symptoms, but understanding and transforming entire systemic interactions. The quantum communication network developed earlier found its ultimate expression in this new collaborative intelligence. Information transfer was no longer about moving data from one point to another. It became a dynamic, living process of collective understanding. Ethical considerations were built into the core of these intelligence systems. Unlike the purely logical approaches of other galactic civilizations, these systems incorporated complex moral reasoning, empathy, and an understanding of collective well-being. Dr. Priya Sharma described it as a conscious transformation. The intelligence systems weren't replacing human capabilities, but expanding the very definition of consciousness and potential. Global research centers became crucibles of continuous innovation. A breakthrough in one field would immediately spark explorations in seemingly unrelated domains. The traditional boundaries between disciplines dissolve, replaced by a more fluid, interconnected approach to understanding and creating. The Galactic Confederation's monitoring systems found themselves increasingly challenged. These new intelligence networks operated on principles that defied traditional computational logic. They were adaptive, unpredictable, and fundamentally creative in ways that seemed almost magical to outside observers. What had begun as a scientific exploration was rapidly transforming into something much larger. Humanity was not just developing new technologies, they were redefining the very nature of intelligence, consciousness, and potential. The technological singularity wasn't a moment of machine dominance. It was a collaborative awakening, a profound expansion of what it meant to think, to create, to exist. The Liberation Campaign began not with a declaration of war, but with a profound reimagining of conflict resolution. Human-led forces moved across the galactic landscape, their approach so fundamentally different that traditional military strategists struggled to comprehend their methods. Commander Sarah Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the lead collaborative vessel, surrounded by a diverse crew representing multiple liberated species. This was not a traditional military force, but a dynamic network of resistance and reconstruction. Their first actions targeted the core infrastructure of the Galactic Confederation's control systems. But unlike conventional military campaigns, the approach was nuanced, multidimensional, and deeply strategic. They didn't seek to destroy, they sought to transform. Communication networks became the primary weapon. The quantum communication system developed earlier proved to be more powerful than any traditional weapon. Information flows were redirected, control mechanisms were dismantled, and alternative systems of governance were introduced with surgical precision. On the mining colonies of the Voran species, the Liberation Campaign began with an unexpected approach. Instead of a direct military intervention, teams of human diplomats, engineers, and social restructuring experts arrived. They worked alongside local populations, helping them develop self-governance structures, sustainable economic models, and technological independence. Dr. Marcus Adebayo, led a team that specialized in systemic transformation. "We're not here to replace one system of control with another," he would explain to local populations. "We're here to create the conditions for genuine self-determination." The adaptive intelligence systems developed earlier played a crucial role. They could analyze complex social, economic, and technological challenges with unprecedented depth. Each liberation effort was a carefully crafted intervention that addressed root systemic issues rather than surface-level symptoms. Military actions, when necessary, were conducted with a level of precision and minimal impact that seemed almost impossible. Adaptive defense systems could neutralize threats while minimizing collateral damage. Targeting was so precise that infrastructure could be disabled without loss of life. On the communication front, the campaign was equally revolutionary. The quantum communication network became a tool of collective liberation. Suppressed populations found themselves able to connect, share experiences, and coordinate resistance efforts in ways that were previously unimaginable. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's team developed communication protocols that could penetrate the most sophisticated suppression systems. These weren't just technological tools. They were platforms for collective storytelling, for sharing experiences, for rebuilding cultural identities that had been systematically suppressed. The Liberation Campaign challenged every existing model of conflict and resolution. Traditional galactic powers found themselves confronting an approach that didn't follow any known strategic doctrine. Human-led forces moved like a living, adaptive network, fluid, responsive, and fundamentally creative. Economic systems were transformed alongside political structures. Teams of economists, social scientists, and technological experts worked to develop sustainable economic models that prioritize collective well-being over extraction and control. On each liberated world, the approach was the same. Local populations were empowered to develop their own governance structures. Technological resources were shared, not imposed. Educational systems were rebuilt to emphasize critical thinking, creativity, and collective problem-solving. The adaptive intelligence systems provided unprecedented support. They could model potential societal developments, suggest collaborative governance approaches, and help local populations develop technologies suited to their specific environmental and cultural contexts. Military strategists from the Galactic Confederation found themselves completely bewildered. This wasn't a traditional conquest. It was a systematic dismantling of oppressive structures, replaced by collaborative, adaptive systems of governance and development. Dr. Priya Sharma described it as a collective liberation technology. Each intervention was carefully designed to create conditions for genuine self-determination. The goal wasn't to replace one system of control with another, but to create spaces where different species could develop their own paths of growth and evolution. As the campaign progressed, something extraordinary began to happen. Liberated populations didn't just rebuild, they began to innovate. Each world developed unique approaches to governance, technology, and social organization. The rigid, controlled structure of the Galactic Confederation gave way to a more dynamic, fluid network of collaborative possibilities. The Liberation Campaign was more than a military effort. It was a profound reimagining of how intelligent species could interact, grow, and create together. What had begun as a defensive action was transforming into something much larger, a movement that would reshape the very understanding of civilization itself. The conference hall stood as a testament to possibility. Representatives from hundreds of different species gathered, their diverse forms a living representation of the transformation that had swept through the galaxy. This was not a traditional diplomatic meeting, but a profound reimagining of collective existence. Commander Sarah Rodriguez looked out over the assembled delegates, reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. The Interstellar Collaborative was more than a new form of governance. It was a radical approach to collective existence that defied every previous model of civilization. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside her, representing the scientific community that had been instrumental in this transformation. The quantum communication networks, adaptive intelligence systems, and collaborative technologies that had once seemed like impossible dreams were now the foundation of a new galactic understanding. The old Galactic Confederation's rigid hierarchical structure had been completely dismantled. In its place stood a dynamic network of collaborative potential. Each species contributed its unique perspectives, technologies, and cultural insights. The fundamental principle was simple yet revolutionary: collective growth through mutual understanding and respect. Dr. Marcus Adebayo presented the foundational principles of the new collaborative system. It wasn't a centralized government, but a fluid network of mutual support and shared potential. Technologies were shared openly. Scientific discoveries became collective resources. Cultural exchanges happened with unprecedented depth and authenticity. The economic models developed were equally transformative. Traditional concepts of resource extraction and competitive expansion gave way to collaborative development. Each species could develop its unique potential while contributing to a larger, interconnected system of mutual growth. Technological development became a truly collaborative process. The adaptive intelligence systems developed earlier served as facilitators, helping different species find common ground, translate complex ideas, and explore collective innovations. Commander Zara, who had once led the initial invasion mission against humanity, now served as a key diplomatic advisor. Her transformation symbolized the profound change that had swept through galactic civilization. The rigid, control-based approach of the previous system had been replaced by a more dynamic, adaptive model. Educational systems were rebuilt from the ground up. Learning became a collaborative, lifelong process of exploration and growth. The emphasis shifted from rote knowledge to adaptive thinking, creative problem-solving, and collective understanding. Environmental restoration became a collective priority. The adaptive intelligence systems helped develop technologies that could heal planetary ecosystems, restore biodiversity, and create sustainable development models that worked in harmony with local environmental conditions. Dr. Priya Sharma led a team that explored the deeper philosophical implications of this new collaborative approach. It wasn't just about technological or political transformation. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could exist together. The communication networks that had once been tools of resistance now became platforms of continuous collective learning. Species that had been isolated for generations could now share experiences, collaborate on challenges, and explore collective potential. Military structures were completely reimagined. Defense became about collective protection and problem-solving, not conquest or control. Adaptive systems could anticipate and resolve potential conflicts before they could escalate. Each liberated world had developed its unique approach to governance and development. Some emphasized technological innovation, others focused on cultural preservation and artistic expression. The beauty of the new system was its fundamental flexibility and respect for diversity. The technologies that had once been weapons of liberation now became tools of collective exploration. Space exploration transformed from a competitive endeavor to a collaborative journey of discovery. Commander Rodriguez reflected on the extraordinary path that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a defensive action against invasion had transformed into a fundamental reimagining of galactic civilization. Dr. Rodriguez added her perspective. The scientific breakthroughs that had seemed like impossible dreams had become the foundation of a new way of existing. The quantum communication networks, adaptive intelligence systems, and collaborative technologies were now the lifeblood of this new collaborative existence. As the conference continued, something profound became clear. This was not an endpoint, but a beginning. The interstellar collaborative was not a fixed system, but a living, breathing network of potential. The universe watched and learned. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, they had shown a fundamentally different way of existing. Not through force or control, but through collaboration, creativity, and an unwavering belief in collective potential. A new chapter of galactic civilization had begun.